Broken good, but I suppose when a team come out in the way that Wigan came out, been playing all season, there's probably very little you can do about it, is it?
Yeah, I think momentum in sports is a very powerful thing. They've started off like an house on fire, and they certainly had that momentum, carried that in again today. We thought we had more than enough to try and maintain or stop that momentum. Unfortunately, we didn't. But all credit to Wigan on a great day for them.
And there's probably a few moments where maybe the players found themselves in a position they've not been in before here, and was frustration a factor as well?
I'm not sure about frustration. Obviously, last week we come from behind. We was a great team last week, and we come from behind. So I think we've been in that position before, and we've certainly believed at half time we were still in the game in a big way. We bombed a few chances in the first half. Just a bounce of the ball, and then we come back after half time and they score straight away, and then it just becomes a really difficult task then to change that momentum. Then you end up chasing the game rather than then staying in that armrest. And I think it was just that. But we've got a lot of experienced players in our dressing room, and the one thing that sometimes I think they don't get the credit they deserve, the 4-time Challenge Cup winners. That was going to come to an end at some spell. Unfortunately, that was today. But if you think of the games them players have played over their career and what they've brought to the Women's Rugby League, I think they'll go down as great players. And listen, I'm not saying they're ready to stop now either. That'll hurt. So good for us. The motivation for them is now to drive on and turn the season into something positive, which it has been up until today.
Can you say, Derek, how much does it hurt to have that 4 successive final wins ended by your biggest rivals?
Obviously the rivalry's there. It is a pride thing. If you live in St Helens and you come from Wigan, it's massive, isn't it? It's a pride thing. But like everything, we've maintained that trophy for 4 years on the bounce, and it was like when we won a treble in 2021. The pressure becomes big. It's a big pressure because you're always expected then to win, and you're expected to lift it again and lift it again and lift it again. And that'd be great, wouldn't it? That's not what sport's about. You get a team who's hungry, who want to go and knock you off, and unfortunately this year that's Wigan.
Mike, anything from you?
Yeah, they were very good all part, weren't they, Wigan? But that start probably was very important in the outcome of the game, wasn't it, in terms of what they had on.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
No, sorry, he's looking at you so you can answer. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we we're watching videos of these teams all year, and one thing we identified that Wigan like to start really fast, and there's been teams this year, these top 4, what people talk about, have been 28, 30 points down at half time before they've even took a breath. So, we tried to nullify that, and we talked about making sure that getting them in arm wrestle, see if they could respond, trying to keep staying at arm wrestle so at half time we were still in it, because they'd blown teams away at half time, and then it was just a matter of getting through the second half. So we spoke about that, and then we went 12-0 down, and again I thought we had loads of opportunities to get back into it, but then we conceded before half time, and I still believe that we could get something because we were starting to get a bit of joy around the ruck. I think the one after half time kills, and then they just get a roll, then it just becomes a more difficult task, isn't it?
It's hard to pull shreds of comfort out of that, but we mentioned the ruck there. Katie sort of brought something to the game, didn't she? She had you up dummy out, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. We just felt like we was lacking a bit of something around that ruck area, and I thought the ruck was slow, if I'm honest, and that's not a dig at anybody, I just thought it was slow. So we was trying to get momentum, but then when Katie come on, we did sort of get a little bit of joy, but again, just that last pass went to ground, or we just couldn't complete, and that's sport, isn't it? Sport's massive about momentum. It's about trying to apply pressure. It's trying to convert pressure, and unfortunately we didn't do that today.
You mentioned the sort of pressure of being four in a row. When there's the pressure on them now, you're chasing them now.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think that's disrespectful to us in a way that what we've achieved is massive, and we're not chasing anybody. We're quite happy with what we do, and we're quite happy with who we are as a group. If they go on and achieve what we've achieved, then I'm sure they'll deserve all the accolades that we've got. But I do honestly think this week's been lost a little bit, and this, some of the comments about how you're going to stop this Wigan machine, how you're going to stop. we're talking about a team of ours who's filled with trophies, filled with winners' medals, filled with international, honours. So, let's see what the rest of the year brings, but we'll certainly be up there for a fight.
Will you be leaning on those sort of senior players to sort of lead the rest of this season? Will you be leaning on Geordie and people like that?
Mate, we're leading them all year, don't we? We've got a group now where, if you look at what they have achieved and how many games they've played and what they've done in the women's game, they need to lead and they need to take leadership roles. When you have a young group, then you probably have to direct them a little bit more. They look to you for leadership, but when you have got a group like that, I think it would be disrespectful of me and Craig to try and do that to them. They are leaders within their own right, and they've certainly achieved more than most.
That motivation in itself to start writing you guys off.
Yeah, it's always going to be, isn't it? We spoke about that this week. We spoke about how we just felt a little disrespected, if I'm honest with you, about the talk around the questions we were being asked. And not necessarily for me and Craig, it doesn't matter who disrespects me, but when you talk about Jodie Cunningham, Emily Rudd, Jamie Hardcastle, Shauna Royal, Shani Crowell, the list endless of these girls have been at the top of the game for a long time. So I just think, they do deserve a little bit of respect.
So the most disappointing today being the mistakes, the unforced errors, the handling errors that maybe the team didn't produce the best that we would like to.
Yeah, do you want to answer?
Listen, one of the things we've prided ourselves on over the years is our skill level. And coming into the game, one of the things we talked about was starting quick. But within that, when you got a chance to execute, go execute. And I thought there was one or two areas where we didn't, and we paid the price for it. Again, just to echo what Dex said, the girls came into this as legends, and you can dispute that if you want, but they've won the competition 4 times in a row. Nothing's changed. Are they hurting? Yes. Do they need to dust themselves down? Yeah. Will we get back on it? Of course we will. But, back to your question, skill levels, everything in rugby league, and we work hard on it, but you've got to execute on the day and take your chances if you're going to fight your way back in, which at 12-0 down, 18-0 down, we were capable of doing that.
In the last couple of seasons, obviously you weren't in charge, but since won the Challenge Cup and then failed to go on and win the Grand Final, is this going to be motivation for them as well, along with disrespect to everything else that's happened?
Listen, I just think that they're a really motivated group and they want to win everything. And you could be almost talking about any team in a comp, but this group, for sure now, will want to go on and win the grand final. Is it going to be easy? No, but if it was easy, would it be worth doing? So yeah, we'll dust ourselves down, probably feel sorry for ourselves for 24 hours, but then we'll get back on it. And we'll just work our socks off and try and put ourselves in a position to go take out the grand final. But like I say, that won't be easy. But we like the challenge is great. We want the challenge.
In terms of the rest of the season, I was putting today to one side. In terms of the development of the game, the growth of the women's game, how good is it now to have another genuine challenger up there in Wigan now?
I think I don't want to be negative about the game, but I think we talk about the top 4, and I think this top 4 has been around since 2018. There's probably no other team that's broken into that top 4. Wigan have got a bit of momentum, but they have, they don't take it away from Wigan. They've signed some overseas players this year. So are we developing players in our group or in our game, or are we having to go and bring them from NRLW or what? I'm not quite sure the answer, but I think as the top 4, there's always been a top 4. I think the big thing now for us is, when I say us, I mean the Women's Rugby League, is we've got to start to make the competition every game competitive, not just Wigan, Leeds, Warrington, York. I think every team's got to start to be competitive, because otherwise you've got the same teams. Great to have another team on the Challenge Cup final, 100%. But I just think it's got to be everybody who's got to try and challenge rather than just the top 4.
Does that mean commitment from clubs into the women's game financially as well as just everything else?
We talk about finances, don't we? And it's no secret that our game of rugby league it's not a sport what's got lots of money involved in it. I know from a club like ours, we've got owners who are putting as much money as they can and trying to make it, what it is. But Well, let's be honest, if this was a standalone final, you'd have 1,000 people watching it, and then by the time you've took wages, coaches, not us, I mean coaches to travel on, food, supplements, kit, whatever, all that expectation, where does that money come from? And I think as a game of rugby league in whole, we need to try and find some money from somewhere to then try and make the competition better. I also think we get mixed up a bit between performance and participation. If you look at numbers, there's some wonderful numbers who are all participating, but is it performance? And that's not. I don't know the answer to that question, by the way, but I believe it's a valid point.
Do you think there needs a bit of a sway back towards performance rather than participation?
It depends what you want it to be, doesn't it? Like ourselves, who've been involved in it a long time, and the girls want it to be performance because they want to be on the best stage. Who'd have ever believed this game would be at Wembley? I never in a million years thought I'd be able to coach at Wembley, but so I think everybody who's involved in it wants it to be performance. It's whether the powers that be can match that thirst and that hunger for it to be performance. It's easy when you're not the people putting your money into it, isn't it? It's the money's got to come from somewhere, but where that comes from, I don't know.